A very good morning to one and all. I am going to teach the first lesson of civics, that is power sharing. This is a very important lesson of class 10. So, I'm going to commence the lesson. As you all know that power sharing is an important element in the democracy. Power should not be vested in the hands of only one government of the state. In an ideal democracy, power should be divided between legislature, executive and judiciary. Let's take the example of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Both of these countries had issues related to power sharing. So I will once again reveal the points. Power sharing is very essential in a democracy. Power should not be vested in the hands of only one government in a state. In a democracy, power should be divided between legislature, executive, and judiciary. We are going to take the examples of two countries, Belgium and Sri Lanka. Let's see how these countries dealt with power sharing. Belgium. Belgium is a small country in Europe. Belgium is smaller than the state of Haryana. Belgium is bordered with Netherlands, France, and Germany. Belgium has a population little over 1 crore. Once again, I'm repeating, Belgium is a tiny country in the continent of Europe. Belgium is smaller than the state of Haryana. Belgium is bordered with Netherlands, France and Germany. Belgium has population little over 1 crore. So you can imagine how small Belgium is. Now let us discuss the ethnic composition of Belgium. The ethnic composition of Belgium is very complex. Out of the country's total population, 59% of the people live in Flemish region and speak Dutch language, whereas 40% of the people live in Wallonia region. They speak French. The remaining 1% of Belgians speak German. The ethnic composition of Belgium is very complex. Out of the country's total population, 59% of people live in the Flemish region. They speak Dutch language. 40% live in the Wallonia region. They speak French. The remaining 1% of Belgians speak German. The capital of Belgium is Brussels. 80% of people in Brussels speak French, whereas 20% of people in Brussels speak Dutch. The minority French people are relatively rich and powerful. This was resented by the Dutch community who got economic development and education much later. The minority French people were extremely rich. This was not appreciated by the Dutch people who happened to get economic development and education much later. There was severe tensions between Dutch and the French community during 1950s and 1960s. The tension between Dutch-speaking people as well as French-speaking people became so acute in Brussels. Now Brussels presented a special problem. They said the Dutch-speaking people constituted a majority in the country but a minority in the capital. Now let's take the example of Sri Lanka. Now let me recapitulate what all I have discussed. Power sharing is essential in a democracy. Power should not be vested in the hands of one organ in a state. In a democracy, power should be divided between legislature, executive and judiciary. First of all, we are going to take the example of Belgium. Belgium is a tiny country in the continent of Europe. Belgium is smaller than the state of Haryana in India. Belgium is bordered with countries like Netherlands, France, and Germany. Belgium has a population little over 1 crore. The ethnic composition of Belgium, it is very complex. Out of country's total population, 59% lives in Flemish region. They speak Dutch language. 40% of the people out of the total population live in Wallonia region. They speak to each other in French. The remaining 1% of Belgians speak the language called German. Brussels. Brussels is the capital city of Belgium. 80% speak French, 20% speak Dutch. Minority French people are extremely rich. This is not appreciated by the Dutch community. This was vehemently resented by the Dutch community, who got economic development and education much later. This led to acute tensions between the Dutch and the French during 1950s and 1960s. The tensions between both communities was really severe and acute in Brussels. Brussels came up with a special problem. Though the Dutch-speaking community constituted majority, they are certainly minority in Brussels. Now let us take the example of Sri Lanka. Sinhala community formed majority and imposed their will on the whole country. Sri Lanka is an island country. It is one of the neighboring countries of India. It has a population of 2 crores. There are two types of speakers in Sinhala. The people comprising in Sri Lanka are Sinhalese and Tamilians. The Sinhalese people form 74% of the total population and the Tamilians form 80% of the total population. Within the Tamil community, there are two types of categories. There are Sri Lankan Tamilians as well as Indian Tamilians. The Indian Tamilians' forefathers came to Sri Lanka many years ago as plantation workers during the colonial period. So, the Tamil community has two categories, the Sri Lankan Tamilians and the Indian Tamilians. The forefathers of Indian Tamilians came as plantation workers during the colonial or the British rule. The people who speak Sinhalese are Buddhist and the Tamilians are Hindus and Muslims. About 7% of Christians are Sinhalese and Tamilians. So, the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka is also very interesting, though it is complex. Sri Lanka is an island nation. It has a population more than 2 crores. There are two types of communities in Sri Lanka, the Sinhalese as well as the Tamilians. The Sinhalese people form 74% of the total population and the Tamilians form 18% of the total population. Among the Tamil community, there are Sri Lankan Tamilians and Indian Tamilians. The forefathers of Indian Tamilians came to Sri Lanka as plantation workers during the colonial period. The Sinhalese are the Buddhist people. The Sinhalese people follow the religion of Buddhism and the Tamil people are Hindus and Muslims. About 7% of Christians are Sinhalese and Tamilians. Now, let us discuss what happened in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, there was a conflict between the Sinhala community and the Tamil community. They were not living in harmony. Let's discuss the policy of majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka emerged as an independent country in 1948. The Sinhala community dominated the Tamil community just because they constituted the majority. Since the Sinhalese people were in majority, by the virtue of majority, They dominated the Tamil community. The democratically elected government after the independence adopted a policy of majoritarianism. That means Sri Lankans will dominate the whole country. As a matter of fact, the Tamil community doesn't have any rights. All the opportunities are vested in the hands of the Sinhalese community. In 1956, an act was passed. This act was known as Only Sinhala Act. According to the Act of 1956, Sinhala must be the official language. Only the people belonging to the Sinhala community can apply for university positions and government jobs, and all the positions of government. The new constitution was formed only to protect and foster Buddhism. So let us discuss the Act of 1956. According to the Act of 1956, Sinhala must be the official language. Only the Sinhala community can apply for university positions and government jobs. A new constitution was formed to protect the rights of the Buddhist people. So the new constitution was formed only to protect the rights and foster the rights of Buddhism. They did not render any rights to the Tamil community. Sri Lankan Tamilians felt really alienated and humiliated. The major political parties run by the Sinhala community was not at all sensitive to their culture and language. The new constitution and government policies denied them equal rights. The Sinhala community of the newly elected government denied jobs and opportunities and ignored their interest. The Tamil people felt alienated. All the opportunities and all the rights were only vested in the hands of the Sinhala community. The Act of 1956 favored only the Sinhalese community. Only they were allowed to seek university positions and government jobs. So the Tamilians felt really humiliated and insulted because the new constitution catered only the rights of the Sinhala community. Tensions between the Sinhalese and Tamilians in Sri Lanka grew more and more. The relationship between Sinhalese community and the Tamil community strained like anything. Tamilians protested against the Sinhalese people. They launched their own parties and started their struggles. They wanted recognition of Tamil as official language. They wanted regional autonomy. They wanted independence and they wanted equal opportunities for all in securing jobs and education. The demand for autonomy was denied by the new government. The new Sinhala government was being totally unfair to the Tamilians. The Tamilians were denied equality, the Tamilians were denied university positions and government jobs, their rights were taken away, their liberty was curtailed. So they decided to go against the Sinhala community by launching their own parties and starting their struggles. They demanded that Tamil should also be the official language. They demanded for regional autonomy and equal opportunities for jobs and education, but the demands were turned down by the oppressive Sinhalese community. The Tamilians by 1980s demanded for an independent Tamil Eelam. Tamil Eelam means Tamil state. That means the Tamilians demanded for a separate state in the northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka. This led to tensions and conflicts between both communities. It turned out into a hostile civil war. Thousands of people of both Sinhalese community as well as Tamil communities were killed. So, when the Tamilians demanded for independent Tamil Elam or state in northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka by 1980s, this led to acute tensions between both the communities. Soon after, it turned into a hostile and a very barbaric civil war. Thousands of people of both the communities were awfully killed. Sri Lanka once had Sri Lanka once had fabulous economic development, education, and health, but unfortunately, the civil war caused terrible setback in cultural and economic life of the country. Sri Lanka was once a very beautiful country with appreciable economic development, education, and health, but due to the civil war between both the communities, it caused a lot of hindrance in their cultural and economic life of the country. So, what I want to conclude is that war is not the solution to any problem. So, I will continue the class in my next session. Thank you so much.